How's everyone doing today? I hope you're doing pretty well. Apologies, I haven't made content in a while because I've been real busy with work, and also um, I'm kind of struggling with the smoke coming in from Canada. Do yourself a favor if you got any elderly in your family, if you're on, especially if you're on the Northeast. If you have any elderly in your family, or if you know anyone that your friends or family that have lung conditions, you might want to check on them. I know for me, it's like every deep breath feels like I'm inhaling daggers, and I've just been exhausted because I'm just not getting in the oxygen that I normally would. But as rough as it's been for me, I'm still having a much better day, or much better, I don't know, last 48 hours than Patrick has. Because once again, Patrick has managed to stumble into, or have some innocent person stumble into him, and he's gone on in full attack. So this is apparently Leslie Barney, who seems to be an incredibly smart woman. She's professional, and she's probably put up with a lot of crap online, being a woman online, with a business online, having to deal with trolls and stuff. And somehow she fell under Patrick's notice. And like usual with women, Patrick has two types of women, I think. Women that are doormats to him, and then the enemy. And so he spent the last 48 hours or so just harassing the heck out of this woman. Just really just acting crazy. And she is Patrick's kryptonite mainly because she's absolutely brilliant on her feet. Like I've been reading these tweets, and she's doing what you should do with like obnoxious trolls, which is use humor and just make them look like fools. Uh, and again, I don't think Patrick is used to having like Patrick doesn't like it when people stand up to him. Like bullies just don't like that. And like Patrick even tried to get his circle of friends, his enablers like Jackie Singh and all, to clap at this woman. And she clapped right back. And they all they're like, okay, like they took the hint. Like, the more I try to like pester this woman, the dumber I look. Yet Patrick doesn't seem to be able to pick up on this. But the absolute insane thing about this is this woman's a literary agent. So I think we can come to the conclusion that Patrick has given up all pretenses of ever getting published again. This is the equivalent of like a guy who played single A baseball, who hasn't played single A baseball in like 2 years, getting into a Twitter beef with like a triple A general manager. It's like, okay, you don't plan on ever getting signed by another team ever again if this is how you're going to act. Like, I don't understand how, like, does Patrick not realize the literary world is pretty small? And like, he's even tried to accuse, like, he's even dropped hints that he's going to get her fired. And it's like, Patrick, how are you going to get her fired? How are you going to get her fired? Because anyone that reads this thread, what are you going to do? Present the thread? Because if you present the thread, you look completely and utterly unhinged. It's like, I just, good on this woman. Good on this woman for standing up to Patrick. Because that's what Patrick is. He's a bully. At the end of the day, he's a flippant bully who cannot take a hint, who believes the rules don't apply to him and stuff. He's just a nasty person. So good on you, Leslie. Leslie, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find a book from the company that you work for, that you're a literary agent for. I'm going to find a book. It's going to take me a while, but I'm going to find one and I'm going to read it. And then, even if I don't like that book, Leslie, I'm going to buy a second book because I think it's important to encourage people to stand up to bullies, especially online. Like, that's what I can't stand about Patrick is he talks a big game, like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna kick your butt, in real IRL, fight me IRL. Then he never shows up, and it's like every single time a woman, like if you notice, that is his biggest kryptonite, is a woman that stands up for himself or for herself. Like he can't handle that, and he's trying to do all the tropes too. It's like, well, I guess you're not like very, very woke. It's like, Patrick, she's a literary agent for a publisher out of Seattle, Washington. You, on the other hand, come off as one of the stereotypical, I'm a feminist dude because I vote Democrat. Meanwhile, there's all these women that have serious issues with you. Like, seriously. And what I like about this woman, too, is, like, her whole thing is just, she's not obsessed with Patrick, but Patrick is completely obsessed with her. I think it's because Patrick got drunk over Trump getting indicted, maybe, and then he just decided to just go off on her. Oh, congratulations, Karen. That's got to be a cool feeling. Somebody's got a wait list. I wonder if Leslie is her agent. I hope she is. Good for you, Karen. Congratulations. I bet you're going to have a lot better career than Patrick because you're probably not a bully. What I still, and this is the other thing that I love about this woman, all she keeps doing is pointing out Patrick's own behavior. What I'm still not understanding is why Stealthy Geek decided to block me for answering the profiles he says are Nazis and terrorists, but he continues to respond, answer, and engage those same exact profiles every single day. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. You know, a judge actually pointed that out too to him. A judge pointed out to Patrick that you cannot tell somebody to come fight him in real life, and then when that guy shows up, you try to file a protective order against that guy. It's like, because that's what Patrick does. Patrick acts like a big, nasty bully to people. Like, he uses misogynistic language towards women. He has no problem with using racist language when it's somebody that he feels is a threat to him. Like, he's a jerk. Good on Leslie. You know, not all heroes wear capes. Not all heroes wear capes. But a lot of heroes have a wonderful sense of humor. So, Leslie is Smith's hero of the week. Like, seriously. Good on for you. Sassy hippie chick. That's a fantastic description of you, ma'am. I bet you she's got a lot more followers now. And again, Patrick, up to 6 hours ago, is still clapping at this woman. And, like, it's like, okay, Leslie is on the Pacific Coast, right? So, like, this is not exactly late for her. It's like, Patrick, like, I love this too. Like, she's like, yeah, you know, I'm getting a lot of people from different accounts that are saying that, like, women that say they have problems with you. And then Patrick is just, like, Patrick, even if you're right and it's trolls that are doing this, you come off as unhinged to normal people. I had a situation in college. I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to reveal too much information about me because you end up with people like Patrick that want to just attack you for any reason. So my sophomore year of college, I was still deaf at the time. I got approached by a friend of mine. We were in classes together, and she was going to become the president of the Women's Engineering Society. And her big issue was you needed to have at least 10 members of the Women's Engineering Society, or like any club on campus. Otherwise, you'd lose your official recognition by the school. And this would affect your access to resources and all. And having to find 4 members was going to be tough. So she asked if I would join, and I said yes. Primarily because, 1, she's a good friend of mine, but 2, I'm a very big believer in getting more women into engineering. I think it's absolutely vital. And if you want a prime example why it's vital, Delcon Shield. Let's see if I can remember how to spell that. Delcon Shield. Yes. Read about the Delcon Shield. It was a horrific situation in which men designed a product for women, and they did not understand that the uterus and the vagina have 2 vastly different biological environments, and it killed a lot of women via toxic shock and all, and which is a terrible way to go. And it was a combination of just poor engineering design along with like government and regulatory malfeasance and so on. And I mean, it killed a lot of women in Puerto Rico and stuff. And yeah, like it was not subject to a lot of testing because it wasn't considered a drug. And like, oh God, horrible horrible. So this is one of the reasons why I was happy to join. So my junior year, the beginning of the junior year, the school instituted a policy where advisors for different clubs, they were going to shuffle them around, because it used to be like, it was always before the Women's Engineering Society, we always had an engineering professor as our advisor. So they decided they were going to have the professors all get shuffled around different departments. I don't know why they decided to do this. So the very first time we met with our new advisor, it was a woman from the sociology department, and I think she freaked out that there was like a over 6'5" gentleman with facial scars who was deaf, who was the treasurer. And one of her first actions was to get us to have a vote on whether or not to kick me from the Women's Engineering Society. And that required, like, I think a 2/3 majority. And of course I wasn't allowed to vote, but the advisor was allowed to vote. And 9 other participants voted. And in a vote 9-1, my fellow students wanted to keep me. I would like to think it's because they appreciated me being around and the work that I did. But more likely than not, a big portion of it was they didn't want to see the Women's Engineering Society collapse or get shut down. I would love to tell you that that was the end of all this, but that's not really what ended up happening. So the professor decided to try to get her students to join the Women's Engineering Society, and we had one hard and fast rule, and this was from the national charter, and that was to be a member of the Women's Engineering Society, you had to be an engineering student in good standing at an accredited engineering program. That was the requirement, nothing else. It didn't have anything to do with your gender or anything like that. That was the only requirement to be required, or the only requirement you needed to fulfill to be allowed to try to join. And this professor took this all the way up to like the dean, and the dean just fired back. Like the dean's like, they can't change what is decided on the national level. Like, I'm sorry, but there's nothing to change. So what ended up happening was a pretty nasty campaign was started against me, where flyers were put up all over campus with my picture and all my contact information on it, implying that I was like a creep and stuff. At the time, we had a Blackboard system, like online messaging, so people were posting shit on that about me. And then I was having these students sign up for tutoring sessions with me, and then they wouldn't show up. Which, out of all of that, that was the one that really pissed me off, because I had a lot of students that I was already tutoring, and they were kind of getting forced out. They weren't able to get tutoring sessions with me because idiot students were, and that was the thing too, is like these to sign up you had to use your official student ID. You had to sign up online. So I knew exactly the women that were doing this, you know. And so eventually what ended up happening was I was constantly being asked about this from not just students, but also from my professors. Like, what's the deal here, Smith? I see these flyers up online. Would you mind explaining to me what's going on? And like some of my professors were even being contacted by people about me, like via email and stuff. And I was always very, very careful with how I explained the situation. I never got exasperated. I never got frustrated with the other person. I never raised my voice. I never swore. I simply laid out the information and I said, this is how I see things. This is what I'm dealing with. And I remember my Latin professor, who was this really cool old guy. Like this guy, I remember after I finished his class, we'd actually go to the bar and drink every once in a while, because he had a lot of cool stories. I remember him when I explained this all to him, he was just like, "Wow, I don't know how you're able to handle this so calm and coolly, because I think he's like, I think I would be ready to throw a punch." And I was like, well, I'm not too really worried about it. And he's like, you're not worried about your reputation? And I was like, well, sir, I'm really tall, I'm really big, and I have scars all over my face. My first impression is already garbage when I meet people. And I started laughing, and he started chuckling. And he's like, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I can handle it. So this went on for about a semester, and I mean, it was getting really disruptive. And it wasn't, I mean, they were harassing anybody anybody that was remotely tied to me. They were everybody. My one roommate moved out of my apartment because they found out that I was living with a graduate student, and they just drove him nuts. And he just moved out one day. He's like, I can't handle this. So eventually what ended up happening was the school came down with a new rule that if you were officially a school-recognized entity, like say a club, like say a fraternity or sorority, or the Women's Engineering Society, the National Honor Society, anything that was recognized at the school as being a club or team or whatnot, you were no longer allowed to bar any student from joining for any reason. And I remember the very next day we had an emergency meeting with the Women's Engineering Society. Pretty much every club on campus had the same exact meeting. So we're in this classroom. It's us, 10 people, including the president. It's that idiot professor and about 40 of these nutbag students. And they're all beaming and smiling at us. And our president takes the podium and she basically announces, she's like, with a heavy heart, I have to announce that we are shutting down the Women's Engineering Society on this campus. These are direct orders coming down from the national chapter. We're not authorized to use any of their likeness, their either copyrighted material or whatnot. This is officially to close the Women's Engineering Society. Dismissed. Boom. And about 6 or 7 of these idiot students started clapping. Like they didn't understand what just happened. And eventually everyone just starts staring at these couple of these idiots, and like they just peter off. And this happened across campus. Every fraternity and sorority immediately shut down. All their national chapters like ordered them to shut down. I went to my undergrad was at an honors university. My honors university to this day still does not have a National Honor Society chapter. I had a 4.0 GPA. I don't put National Honor Society member on it because my junior year, the National Honor Society for my university shut down. But again, the important thing to take away with this, and if Patrick, if you're hearing this, the important thing to take away from this is, if anytime somebody asked me what was going on, and I just snapped and flipped out because I'm exasperated and pissed off, people would naturally start thinking, well, maybe there's something to this. This guy comes off as psycho. This guy's crazy. He's angry all the time and stuff. This is the exact reason why lawyers tell their clients, whether it's a civil or criminal case, don't talk to the media. Don't talk to anyone about it. Keep your mouth shut. Because it's so easy to start running your mouth and you shoot yourself in the freaking foot. And he doesn't, like Patrick doesn't seem to understand this. This is the kind of guy that could show up at a orphanage run by Catholic nuns with a check for 50 grand. And by the time the photo op is over, he is pissed off those nuns so badly that like they're kicking him out and they're throwing the check after him. It's like Patrick just doesn't know how to talk to people. And it's really disturbing to me that nobody in Patrick's family, in Patrick's life, in real life, I'm talking real life, not the internet, but the real life, is close enough to Patrick to try to have an intervention for him. Because the internet, and maybe it's alcohol too, but definitely the internet, he has an unhealthy obsession with the internet. This is insane. Him picking a fight with a literary agent. When I heard the audio of the case when he tried to get a protective order, I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy can't help himself. He can't talk to anybody. I thought that was bad. This is 1,000 times worse. Like I cannot imagine me as an electrical engineer that works in heavy industry and automation. I cannot imagine if I decided to just start clapping at, like, say, the head of HR for Toshiba or General Electric or Siemens or something on social media under my own name and everything. Like, because if I started doing that, word would get around that I am a head case and nobody would want to work with me. But it's just crazy, man. Like, Absolutely crazy. Leslie, man. Leslie, again, good for you for standing up for yourself and not taking crap. It's even so hard to be seen as a woke feminist too. You two made sure to block me. They don't want me to be tarred. They don't want to be tarred and feathered with the same brush, but it's too late. Yeah, like, and that's the other thing too. Is like Patrick, like the people that try to support you, you are acting so out of line. You're gonna start affecting other people's careers and stuff. It's like, jeez, it's crazy. The only way that Patrick could possibly top this is if he tried to sue this woman. Because if he is dumb enough to try to get this woman fired, oh, sweet summer child. Oh, sweet, stupid summer child. Patrick, if you try to do that, well, I don't know what I'm saying, because you're already you're basically blacklisted from the literary industry. Like, I don't get this guy. And again, this is not a parody account or anything. This is a legitimate woman. This is a professional. Like, Patrick, what are you doing, man? Like, even at the height of my alcoholism, when I was in the emergency room, and my wife and my boss are laying down the fact that I am going to detox and I am going to rehab, and if I don't, I will lose my job, I will lose my wife, I will lose everything. If for a split second, I almost tried to argue with my wife. But even in that moment, I still don't think I was nearly as self-destructive and self-deluded as Patrick can be at times. It's like, dude, Patrick, man, what are you smoking? Well, anyway, I'm done rambling. I'm actually exhausted now because I've been talking too much. Again, if everybody out there, please check on family, especially if you're in the Northeast. Check on family, especially the elderly or anybody with a lung condition. Check on them. Make sure they're doing okay. Until Canada decides to stop their ongoing terrorist attack on America. That's a joke, by the way. Oh, the Canucks are upset now. It's like, oh, hey, we keep saying we're sorry. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, just check up on each other and everybody take care. All right, ciao.